Now before you click away, I do want to tell you, the title is not clickbait. Stick around. It says nothing to do with Jar Jar Binks. Hello everyone, and welcome to something a little different here on Bill Ricco 9's channel. I say that a lot, but, I like to try new things. And I have done some book reviews in the past, but I don't believe I've done any novelizations. I think I did like some Lego book reviews and stuff, and that was about it. So today I'm reviewing my first novel. As you guys know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. It's probably my second favorite franchise. Lord of the Rings is my favorite, and it's Jurassic Park and Star Wars, but Jurassic Park has less movies, and only 2 of them are good. 2.5, so, Anyway, Darth Plageuis. Very interesting book. I've read some Star Wars novels in the past. I read the Thrawn trilogy. I've read some of the novelizations of the films themselves and some other stuff. But this one I heard good stuff about, and I was like, well, that was a pretty interesting part of the story, so I'd like to learn a little more about it. And I'm kind of one of those people that thinks that Snoke might be Darth Plageuis, so if they do reveal that, I want to know about this guy. What's his roots? What's his past? And although this is now labeled as Legends since Disney bought it, which, it's kind of disappointing that they ruined all these good stories. They didn't ruin them, I guess, but they discredited them, and now they don't make any sense, and they don't fit in. So it's kind of like an alternate reality sort of thing, which a lot of series do. Star Trek has done it and stuff, so, it's not a terrible thing, but at the same time it's a little weird and a little disappointing. So this one, because it deals with the prequels, it can still work. Possibly. And this one has heavy, heavy ties towards Episode 1 Phantom Menace, which everyone hates, for the most part. I don't hate it. I give it a B+, which is probably the highest rating that anyone would ever give it. Probably, unless you're talking to some kid that really likes Jar Jar Binks or something. Anyway, I went into this book, expecting like action and lightsaber battles and dark side myths and legends and all kinds of dark stuff. And there is all kinds of dark stuff. But there's really not a whole lot of action in this book. But there is a ton of politics. Now, I love politics. I'm really big into the 2016 election. I want to know about it. I want to know the candidates. I want to know the issues. I want to know all about it. So I'm a pretty political person. So, being that way, I found this pretty interesting. It is incredibly dense. I took almost a month reading this book. Now, it's not only because this book is dense, it's also because it's summer vacation and reading isn't my top priority over summer. But I definitely would have made it through this book faster if it wasn't quite so dense. And this book is dense, as you can see. It's fairly thick. It is almost 500 pages. Almost. About 460, it looks like. So, pretty big book for any standards, but when you're getting through politics and you're trying to connect things to other stories and other films and stuff, it gets complicated, and you want to stay on top of it. So, you have to read it a little slower, and you might even have to go back a little bit and reference some things if you want to follow it. It starts out, I won't spoil too much, but it starts out with Darth Plageuis and his master, Darth Plageuis, who is a Bith. It's kind of hard to imagine an evil Bith. Those are the ones that are in the Cantina band playing the music. It's kind of hard to imagine him as an evil Sith Lord, but just go with it. So it starts out with them, and then as you get further and further into the story, it focuses more and more on Palpatine. That's Darth Sidious. By the time you get to the end of the book, you're kind of like, why is this called Darth Plageuis? This should be like the origins of Darth Sidious or something. Because it really does focus almost more on him than it does on Plageuis, even though he doesn't come in until maybe a fourth of the way into the book. It takes a little while for him to get introduced, but once he does, there's a ton of him. You get to learn things about him that make his character more interesting, and when you go, I don't think if you read this book, you'll never look at the movies the same way again, because you're going to think, oh, okay, well, after I read this book, I realized that not only did this character have an impact on this, but this character did as well, and maybe even multiple people. If you read this book, you'll begin to realize, at least according to this author, that everything leading up to the Empire taking over was not just Darth Sidious's idea. It was a huge part of it was played by Darth Plageuis, and even to some extent Vader, obviously. But Vader / Anakin is barely even mentioned in this book. He's actually physical in one scene, and he's mentioned a few times. But you don't really learn a whole lot about Anakin in the story. If you're looking for that, look elsewhere. But if you want to learn about Sidious, if you want to learn about Darth Plageuis and such, this is a very interesting book. And like I said, the most interesting part is tying it to The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, mostly those two, especially Phantom Menace, but definitely heavy references to Attack of the Clones as well, into the Clone Wars a bit, and then kind of referencing some stuff that happens in the original trilogy. Not a whole lot though, other than obviously, oh, the Empire took over. Yeah, that happens. You're going to learn more about the creation of the Clone Army, what made the Neimoidians actually create that blockade around Naboo, and how that was actually a huge factor in what later happens in the series. Because a lot of people think, oh, The Phantom Menace, you don't need to watch that movie. It's an origin story, it's unnecessary. Even the entire prequels, you can kind of skip them. No, you can't. At least according to me. Attack of the Clones is not that great a movie. I would give it a B-. But it isn't, they're all necessary, I think. I don't hate any of them. I dislike some of them more than others, but I think they're all at least decent. And Revenge of the Sith is a huge payoff once you get to it. I love it. I love Revenge of the Sith. It's one of my favorite Star Wars films. In fact, it kind of competes for my top spot. It doesn't make it to my top spot, but it's almost there. It could easily take second place. Once you read this book, I think you'll begin to realize that the Phantom Menace is actually a much more important chapter in the story than it first seems. At least I think so. Now, there's a few references to Gungans in here, I will warn you, but they're very few, very few and far between, so you don't have to worry about Misa this, Misa that. There's very, very few references to Gungans, but a little bit. So if you are a huge Star Wars fan like me, would I recommend this book? Absolutely. Just be prepared. This is probably like no other Star Wars book you've ever read, or for that matter, any work of fiction revolving around a huge universe like Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that. This is going to be very different from a fun, action-packed, speedy read, like something like the Thrawn trilogy, or most other Star Wars novelizations. This is very dark, very dense, and very politics-heavy. But if you can get past that, it is an amazing story. If you're a huge Star Wars fan like me, I believe you're going to love it. If you're a casual Star Wars fan, or, you know, just kind of like, oh, Star Wars is cool or whatever, but it's not your favorite, then I would probably advise you to steer away. But as for me, I'm going to give this book an A-, because it does get a little boring, and it's actually quite slow through most of the story. But once you get towards the middle and the end, you're going to be like, oh, I want to see how this relates to how the Phantom Menace starts, or I want to know how this ties to Attack of the Clones or whatever. Very interesting book, as I said before, but not for everyone. So will this change your mind about the Phantom Menace? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Don't hate on me if it didn't, because I just gave you the disclaimer at the very beginning of the video. It might not change your idea. You might still think the Phantom Menace is the worst of the movies and one of the worst movies ever made, period. But this is one of the highest rated Star Wars books, and I loved it. I loved it. Very dense and stuff, as I said before, but I did love it in hindsight. It's kind of difficult to get through, but I'm very, very glad that I did get around to reading it. So if you're a huge Star Wars fan like me, definitely check this out. If you enjoyed this video, likes, comments, shares, and all that good stuff is appreciated as always. Thanks for tuning in. Check out some of the other stuff here on the channel. Lots of cool stuff, Star Wars fans, and fans of many different things. So I hope you will check out some other videos. Until next time, goodbye.